And the question is, should couples split a 50-50 of their wealth during divorce settlements? Once again, should couples split 50-50 of their wealth during divorce settlement? What exactly does the law dictate when it comes to divorce settlements? And let me just start from you, Duncan, given the numbers from 2013 all the way to 2022. The numbers, again, they were rising and then coming down and then rising, again. But in 2022, more than 5,000 people filed for divorce. What exactly do you make of these numbers?
I think that is actually a true reflection of what is happening in the society. And maybe I would attribute it to two things. One is maybe the economic situation that afflicted many people, COVID and thereafter. So these are aftermaths, because divorce is not a situation, it's a process. Some people forbear for some time and then they decide, now let's actually separate.
Separate, yeah.
But the other thing is also, I think the legal parameters have now allowed it, and it's easier now, and there is knowledge out there that you can actually file for divorce. People have been told that even if you are married in a customary way, the only way to separate is through a formal divorce.
Right.
So the laws have now become easier, because children matters are dealt with in the children's court.
Yeah.
Issues of property are dealt with separately in terms of the matrimonial property courts. Yet divorce now is a singular aspect. You just go in, we do not want to continue to be together, and the court has no business, mainly like it was before, to try and force you to be together.
Right.
So it's a quick situation. Yeah. It's not as acrimonious as the previous matters used to be, where you have children matters, the issue of property therein. It's seamless and it's so fast.
And then you're given sort of like 3 months to think about it. Does that still stand? Or it depends?
It depends on the situation.
It depends.
Yeah.
All right. We'll look at again, the different forms of marriages that the law recognizes, and if that then sort of like influences, the whole question about the divorce settlements and what people, need to know, as far as that is concerned. But also there's that question of what God has put together. Let no one put asunder. But Grace, again, given the numbers and even what the people are saying, what exactly is happening in our marriages today?
I think culturally things have really changed. When you think about years past, when we had the cultural constitutions where the village, the elders were involved, there are so many things that have changed over the years. And then also you think about women lib. That's another thing. So there is confusion about what marriage is. Yeah. I find in my work, actually people who come and they say, I just want to understand what is my role in the marriage. Both the man and the woman. What am I supposed to do? When I'm told I'm supposed to respect my husband, what does that look like? When I'm told that I'm supposed to love my wife, what does that look like? So there is confusion, because there has been a shift. Now, the shift that I see mostly is emotional. Okay. Marriage was more, a way of, it's like a passage, a rite of passage. Right. You get born as a woman, and once you finish high school, you go to college, the next thing is marriage.
Planned, yes.
Yeah, marriage and children. But now people are not marrying for procreation and those other traditional ways. We are marrying for, you meet my needs, scratch my back and I scratch yours. Okay. What have you done for me lately? Yeah. What are the how are you able to meet my emotional needs? So right now, the individuals who are coming for marriage counseling, they have the women are saying, my husband does not meet my emotional needs. Okay. And the man is saying the woman does not respect me. Okay. So both of those needs are emotional. Okay. And so marriage has become more emotional than it was before. And that is why, and then now, according to what our advocate is talking about, that now it's easy, the law has made it easy for me to walk away. When you think about even just in general, we have more options. Our mothers didn't have more options. Now women can own property. Yeah. Women can be, it's no longer that you have to be married. Yeah. In fact, these days, people
Yeah.
want to come we stay.
Yeah.
And now
Yes.
we know what the High Court has said
Just
about
said
come we
recently,
stay.
yes, and of course, Okash will also take us through, that aspect, as well. Or right now, we've seen a majority of women who are like, you know what, they just want to get a child
Yes.
and move on.
Yes.
I don't even have to tell this man that this is your child.
Right.
You don't even have to know this.
Let me say
your
one more
child.
thing.
Yeah.
The generation that we have right now, they are coming out of homes where their mothers were oppressed,
Okay.
or where their fathers were oppressed,
Okay.
whichever way. So they are coming out of that, and so they didn't get their emotional, their basic needs were met, but their emotional needs were not met. So they are going into relationships not knowing that they are trying to replace the love and the care
That
and
they
the
missed
nurture
out
they
on.
missed out.
Yeah.
So they are out here looking, now the young adults, not just this generation, but the generation before them, they are out here, they are not about commitment as much. They are about what are you able to do for me, because there is a need for this person that I am calling my spouse to meet my childhood needs that were not met.
Okay.
And so for us marriage counselors, we have moved from just saying it's communication.
Yeah.
We have moved from there, and now we are saying we need to allow our young people who are getting into marriage now, not just young people, even if you're in your 40s, come for personal healing and personal growth.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence, very important
it's
in
very key,
marriage,
yes.
and then it will lead you into what we call relational intelligence. Because if we
that's
don't do
interesting,
that,
yeah.
we will continue going from one relationship to
the
another,
other.
and
Yeah.
many other issues like addictions and all that stuff.
Come into
Yeah.
play. So it's like we're a bunch of broken people, getting into marriages because we have not healed
Yes.
from our traumas, or we're trying to compensate what we
Yes.
missed out on
Yes.
growing up. And that's a really interesting thing to think about. Yeah.
Ideally, Winnie, the other parameter is that we are a society nowadays that people are marrying because of their aesthetics, which fade away within a very short time, as
Yeah.
opposed to previously where people looked at character more, or the family and such.
Yeah.
Therefore, you find that we now also have become a society that has accepted the aspect of divorce. Previously, it was a bit shameful. You could not even come out say, I'm divorced. You had to actually stick in there or try to find a solution within. Nowadays, it's so okay, people, that even churches, as much as there are churches that could not even fathom that idea of divorce.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's okay, you are a divorcee,
Yeah.
and life goes on.
I was listening to actually one pastor who was saying, listen, I know there's that question of what God has put together, let no man put asunder. But at the same time, you cannot force, these two people who clearly tell you we cannot work. You cannot force them to stay in that union because, again, there's several reasons. We talked about question, a case of violence and all those things. So if it's over, what else can we say? What else can we say? But then, so what are the different forms of marriages that the law knows about, or what the law says when it comes to marriage?
Winnie, the marriage, previously we had very different regimes of marriage.
Yeah.
It was scattered helter-skelter. But in 2014, it came in the Marriage Act, which now brought all these regimes under one roof.
All right.
So Marriage Act is the one that guides and drives aspects of marriage in this country today.
Yeah.
And it tells us that we have Christian marriages, we have civil marriages where you go to the AG, we have Islamic marriages, we have Hindu marriages, and we have customary marries.
Okay.
It's still recognized under the law.
Come we stay?
Come on stay is
there was a bit of, there was like 6 months, first initially it was like, come we stay is not recognized as marriage, and then we got a ruling at some point where they said 6 months, it doesn't matter whether it was like formal or informal, you stay together for 6 months, you're automatically married rather. And then just recently then the court said, no, that is not. So it's like a lot of people watching us and thinking, Sisi, or come we stay to get you happy. Where do they stand? What exactly does the law say for those people who don't know what was said just recently?
The law adapts to the way of life. Okay. Law is made for man. So to a large extent, the courts had adopted a position where they accepted that some people just come and start off. You know, you come, a lady will come with one dress, another dress, and eventually that's a family. So it was recognized. Ideally, it was 6 months, as some courts had said 2 years. But as long as people perceived you and the way you carried yourself, you carried yourselves as married. So the law actually allowed that. It's called presumption of marriage.
Presumption of marriage, yes.
However, with the decision that was given in Supreme Court petition number 9 of 2021, on the same day that the property issue was decided last week, the Supreme Court now has kind of indicated that it's not a must that when people stay together, it means that you assume that it's automatic. In fact, the Supreme Court is saying it is not the norm. You should not just assume. You know, it should actually be the uphill task for you to now prove that indeed you intended to be married. And it has said today's the people we have in this country today are people who can even just decide, let's stay together, friends with benefit.
I mean, listen, situation
you even have children, you enjoy all the balances and benefits of marriage, but of a marriage life, but you are not married. So it actually is spelling the death knell in terms of presumption of marriage. And it will be very difficult for you to demonstrate that you actually were married. But more importantly, also, if you look at the Marriage Act, that is not a form of marriage that described or recognized.
Under the Marriage Act, yes.
So the Marriage Act is very clear that if you get married during the subsistence of from 2014 coming all the way up to date and going forward, you cannot then bring this issue of presumption of marriage. Actually, even if you get married under the customary law, you must still formalize it in terms of being recognized by the government. So gone are those days when there'll just be an assumption that you are married. It must actually be formalized. And remember, if you look at the Constitution, if you look at even the Marriage Act Section 2, it's very clear that even in terms of property, it comes from a point of departure that you are married. So that issue of being married, there should never be a question about it. So before 2014, we had the Married Women Properties Act and such, which used to actually be the reigning regime, and that allowed people to at least play around with the issue of presumption. But now currently, I think that is nothing to, the position is that there's nothing like now presumption of marriage. That is actually the legal position.
Exactly. And then, so then the question might be, so then what evidence do I need? And I'm thinking about it long term. Should anything happen, right? And we're like, you know what, we have tried to meshindwa and we to go separate ways. And this is a case of a come we stay arrangement. What evidence then do they need? Because at this point, it is not recognized in the Marriage Act. Maybe they do not have a certificate. So then how do I prove to the court that, listen, I was married to this man or to this woman, it's just that, hatuna certificate?
Winnie, if your marriage is contracted from 2014 onwards, it must be within the recognized 5 forms of marriage. The ones I've told you, nothing else, nothing. The other one is imaginary. You'll be told, wake up from your dream very fast. But previously, if you're married previously, it's grandfathers or uncles and such, they may then come, and the Supreme Court in this decision has actually told us what the requisites. Of course, you must have lived like man and woman. You must have been capable legally of contracting a marriage, so that you are not underage, you are not already married to someone else. It is not. There must have been consent and such. So, and in terms of all the things that fulfill the aspect of marriage. So, to a large extent, you can go that way if your marriage was contracted earlier in terms of maybe a presumption of marriage. But onwards, that issue of presumption of marriage it cannot be something you can now take to court, especially after the Supreme Court decision on the 27th, because now that settles that. And remember, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. The moment the Supreme Court has pronounced itself, that is the end of that matter as far as Kenya is concerned. And it is only the Supreme Court that can sit again and change. But whatever they have said, it applies downwards to all courts. So it binds everyone. So that is the law,
Okay.
and I think it is proper to tell Kenyans that that issue of presumption of marriage is long gone. And the Supreme Court has said, like I've told you, it has realized that you can actually just decide to cohabit and just. But that does not necessarily mean
that you are, absolutely married. All right. And Grace, so given all those things, and then basing that on what we're seeing now, how much of a trouble are we?
I will say this, there is still a lot of hope.
Yes.
Because when you look at the numbers, the percentages of the 40% or 49% of marriages that are happy and they are thriving versus the 51 that are ending in separation and divorce, we still have a lot of hope. What we need to do is to study the marriages which are making it and offer our people, our people information about how to be relationally intelligent. What is it that you need to do? And one of the things that we know, two broken people will make a broken marriage.
That's true.
Two whole people are going to make a marriage that works. Or if you meet someone, you are whole, you've done your work, you can influence the person that comes into your life.
Okay.
What is happening also is that we are getting into marriage as an oops. So what is happening is that every person who comes to therapy because they're having trouble in their marriage, especially during the first 7 years of marriage, it is what we call the drama stage of marriage. And so then that does not also mean that people who planned and prepared for marriage are not getting into problems. It's because we do not really understand the emotional part of marriage. We really think, and they met and they loved each other and they had a wedding and they lived happily ever after. We do not understand that love is not the only thing you need in marriage. It's never enough. You need skill.
A lot of things.
You need skill. So what we need to do is to really help our people to know. Let me tell Kenyans, do not get into a marriage before you have really gotten to understand why you're getting into it. And it doesn't matter the reason, as long as you are aware and you have intentionally looked at the eventualities and prepared yourself for that. The days of just going blindly into a marriage are long gone.
Absolutely.
We prepare, and we also need to know this, Winnie, that marriage is not a destination. It is a process of life. We are picking up, it's me and you walking together. Now, the people who do the come we stay, those that have spoken to, they say, why should we formalize this? Na tuko na shida. And I'm saying,
someone was saying, why should I involve the government in my affairs? Like why? Why does the government have to dictate all those things?
And they have a point. They have a point. And even if you're going, because a lot of people will use a religious explanation that in the Bible they never use. But you see, when they talk about divorce in the Bible, it talks about a certificate of divorce, which there is a presumption there was a certificate of marriage.
When you're getting married.
You
Look
see?
at that. Look at that.
So it is something that is not just about our contemporary issues. It's something that has been there. Even in our traditional African setting, it was a formal process that was recognized by the community, by families, and it was upheld. But these days, we meet in River Road and we stay for 6 months.
And someone let's come together.
So we want to encourage people to do premarital counseling. It's very, very helpful. And obviously, you know that is the business we are in.
Absolutely.
And people need to reach out to us.
So, Kach, very quickly, just help us really understand this whole question about divorce and who gets what during a settlement. What exactly was pronounced?
Yes, I think the Supreme Court has helped in settling this question because previously, you know, there's been, courts have been giving different positions. And even when we were learning law, we could see authorities which were clashing. We had the Kivitu versus Kivitu case where Samuel Kivitu was abroad, the wife was here, he used to send money, and at what was supposed to be divided. Later on, the courts came, and at that point it was 50-50 automatically. Yeah. Later on, the court came and told us, in the case that you've seen mentioned everywhere, Sharia versus Sharia, whereby the court said it shouldn't be just automatic. Yeah. You must at least prove contribution. And that was when there was this notion of gold diggers or people just coming to the relationship to come out with half. With the intention, they target you, they know you have A, B, C, D, so they already know the potential is, at the worst, I'll come out with half. Yeah. So the court then decided, that is in 2007, to actually ensure that you don't, it's not automatic. You must at least show that you've helped this man or this woman, if it's the woman who has the means, to achieve that. If it's property, you've also contributed in one way. The only thing in that matter is that the court said that contribution can be financial or can be non-financial, you know. So you can actually contribute in many ways by, if you are staying home and helping the children to do CBC here and there, you have actually assisted the man to concentrate in whatever he's doing. Work, if you're at work, you are preparing the house, it's so clean, it's so good, it's, really. You know, you create a very good environment, and that by itself is there. But you also have the direct contribution. If you have receipts here and there, it also helps. So to a large extent, that was then. Then we've had now a plethora of cases which were not very consistent, but now the Supreme Court has come in and said, ideally, there is this notion that Article 45(3) of the Constitution, which is which is the same as what you have indicated in the Matrimonial Properties Act, that says equal. You are equal at the point of starting the marriage, during the marriage, and even after. So the presumption was that equal means half. Half, so that's why it has always been 50-50. People have assumed it's 50-50. Yeah. So the court has now come in and said, as much as this talks about equal, equal does not mean half. Okay. The court says we will still apply that principle in the Sharia case. All right. Whereby if you come before us and you are claiming, yes, this is matrimonial property, then fine. First we'll establish whether it is matrimonial property. All right. If it is, then the next issue is, what is your claim? You'll say, I'm claiming half. Why? Then it is upon you who is claiming that half to demonstrate why you are claiming half. What did you do? Okay. Did you give money to improve? Did you actually contribute in any other manner which is non-financial? If you gave money, where are your documentation? Then the court will assess. But the beauty of it is that it allows each and every court to assess your situation. All right. There is no formula that it will be said for Winnie will be applied directly to Okach. No. Yeah. There is no standard formula. Your circumstance may not be the circumstance of someone who is up country, who is in Kericho. So it will look at all the circumstances and what you have contributed. And I dare say that chances are very high if you can demonstrate some semblance of contribution. Like basically have evidence. Not even, you'll have evidence, or you'll have witnesses to also support that particular fact. You can have your children to say, yes, my mom was doing ABCD. Chances are high it should go to 50-50 because that is contribution. Okay. The only point it cannot go to 50-50 is if you are married today, 1 week after you are now divorcing and you want 50-50. It will not happen.
There was a lot of questions about, let's say I'm a stay-home mom or I'm a stay-home dad. So in this case, I'm not able to directly contribute financially, right? You know, into this marriage. But again, and I'm pretty sure you also heard from the people, you know, some who are saying, but time, you know, some of us are saying, I wasted my time with this person, but we're not saying wasting of time per se, but I contributed in one way or the other. Make sure that the kids are okay, prepare you to go, you know, to work, make sure that the house is functioning, just make sure that the home is home. Right? So then when we are divorcing, of course I don't have receipts to say, si ile siku nilikupasia shati, I made sure that you got to work on time, I made sure that the kids got to school on time. I might not have tangible evidence. So then where exactly does that leave this group of people?
There's in terms of the law, there's a rebuttable presumption that, you know, matrimonial property belongs to both spouses, or even if they are separating. However, the burden of proof lies on you, who is now saying I contributed. That's the law.
Yeah.
So to that extent, it behoves you to have something in terms of evidence. It's up to you. You cannot go there mkono mtupu
and
na
say,
unagoja ilambwe.
Unaona vile amekula hivi ni
Ni
mimi.
mimi. You can't. Exactly, but you still have to have some evidence.
Some
if it is direct financial loss, it is now expected that you actually keep that evidence. But if it is non-material, non-direct contribution,
have like
then
witnesses.
Have at least witnesses who can actually come in and say, truly, these people have been living as man and wife. She has been doing ABCD, even in your children's school, you know, they will be there. It's something that is part of life. You don't even need to struggle to demonstrate, but you need to have that evidence in terms of how did you contribute. You can even be managing that rental proceed or even the business itself. You will have some evidence here and there, communication in your phone. So that will actually help you and help the court to actually now consider and agree that you actually contributed, and it will apportion. But remember, now it is not automatic that it must be 50-50. The court will also assess the nature of contribution and can actually say it is 30, 70,
60,
can
40,
be 40, 60. It depends. But if you have at least
something
it contributed in a way and you have some proper evidence, then chances are very high you'll land at the 50-50.
At the 50-50.
Grace,
so where does that leave us? Evidence, collect receipts, record voice notes if you have to, and all the. Where does that leave us then?
Now, I really want to say this, that when I listened to Mr. Okach talking about evidence or at least witnesses and all that, it really tells us that we need to stop living in La La Land. Get information, learn, understand. If you're getting into a marriage, understand what this entails. Now, the whole idea of if I start thinking about what the law says about marriage, then I'm saying that my marriage is not going to work. I'm going into marriage thinking otherwise, like there is a way out. No, we are talking about equipping yourself with information so that, because life is what it is.
But then again, where does that then put the basics, the fundamentals of marriage, which is built on trust,
and commitment.
And all. Where does that leave us? Because again, now that everybody knows this, maybe it's easy,
No, it's very simple.
Sort of like prepared.
Yes, it's very simple. When you come for premarital counseling, we talk about all of these things. What are your deal breakers? You need to do that, especially even before you get married. You need to know what are your deal breakers so that you can meet or you can do your due diligence to start off with a person who has the same values as you when it comes to the fundamentals of marriage. Now, you ask that question, but how many people know the fundamentals of marriage? The fundamentals of marriage are very simple, but they are usually elusive to us because we go into marriage being very defensive, because I have my own wounds. By the way, I just broke up with my boyfriend 2 months ago, and it was such an emotionally draining experience, and because I am so much in pain, guess what I do? I get into another relationship to heal the old one, and then this relationship, because this person I have met is so loving and caring, is there holding space for me, we get married. And then I realize after some time I am healed, but I don't want this person. You see? So it is very important for people to understand these fundamentals of marriage about commitment and trust. They are really rooted in yourself, knowing who you are and where you are before you make the commitment. When we listen to the wedding vows, the pastor always starts with, this institution is very important. It should not be entered into without a lot of consideration and understanding and all that. And that is what premarital helps us with. I tell people when they come to me, we have a wedding in April, and we need to get premarital before we do the wedding. And I always say, you don't have to finish the premarital now. And I want to say marital therapy checkups. You know the way we go to work and they have to do the appraisal every once a year? I encourage couples to do marital checkups at every 6 months. It is not going to cost you much. And you just go to a therapist and you say, hey, we want to do a scorecard. We want to see how are we doing. Because what we need to understand, a marriage starts with the dream stage, and you are everything I want. There is a fantasy of who you are. Okay. Then we enter into living together, and we start the drama stage of marriage. Okay. How come you cannot do the toothpaste the way I do it? How come when I come into the sink, ulinyoa whatever, and you left those? Those are the little foxes in our relationships that are going to make it so hard for us. Now, what does that mean? That you as a person must develop what we call self-regulation. Because once you don't speak about it, but in a kukera, it will build up. And then you guys are going to fight about money at some point because you sent somebody money, you didn't consult me, or you bought something, you didn't consult me. And it has nothing to do with this. It has a lot to do with all these other little stuff that we haven't. But you see, we don't think of that. But those are the dramas in the drama stage of marriage. It's usually during your first 7 years of marriage. Now, what happens in this time of the drama stage, you need to have a therapist who walks with you. It does not mean you cannot save your marriage or you can't solve your problem. It means the therapist is going to help you see things outside of the emotional space where you are. They can be able, it's a third party that is going to see things that you are not able to see. Now, the other thing that I want to say here, we normally we go to parents. When we have our first year and we have having problems, we go to parents, or we go to friends, or we go to the pastor. You want to ask yourselves, first of all, identify what your problem is, so that you look for the expert for that problem. If you're having communication problems, your parents can't help you with that. And your friends can't either. But if you have an issue with communication and conflict management, you need a marriage coach.
That's true.
To be able to help you add to your love the skills.
Yes.
You see.
And I like the fact that you're emphasizing love is important, but it's not every, you need some of those skills. Okay. And okay, someone might ask, so fine. So this is me, right? I have my kashamba somewhere. I have my, whatever it is, right? And then you come in, you also have your kashamba somewhere. You have, something else going on for you. But then again, there's also that thing of when we get married, we become one. So whatever is yours is mine. Whatever is mine is yours. But someone says, but mimi nilikuja na yangu, na siku nilikuja na yako. Do we also split that, or where exactly does the law place us? Are we looking at what we acquired together during our period of marriage, or it's everything, whatever I came with, whatever you came with, and then whatever we acquired during the process?
In the Matrimonial Properties Act is very clear on the definition of what is matrimonial property. So what you acquired before marriage is not considered as matrimonial property. That is yours.
All right.
What inheritance is actually not considered as matrimonial property, or something that you have in trust in your name, but for maybe the future generations, is not considered. So what is considered is what you actually acquire from the point of marriage to the point of separation. And remember, you even have polygamous marriages recognized under law. So what you've acquired up to the point the other lady comes is solely for the two of you. What is acquired from the point another lady joins the marriage to the point of determination, that is now belongs to the three of you. But it, of course, also the principles of contribution and proof must also come in. So as I'm saying this, what people should know is that the issue of matrimonial property mostly will arise, or a dispute will arise in terms of how that property is registered. So you'll find that if the property is jointly registered, there is no dispute, it's automatic. But if the property is registered in the name of one spouse, then there must be a claim, and you must then demonstrate that yes, it's registered in the name of Winnie, but this I'm also entitled in this manner. As I said that, which is very important, and just touching on what my colleague has indicated, the issues of vows. Indeed, it is proper, churches will continue administering these vows, but the reality of this act and the Supreme Court pronouncement will make hypocrites of anyone who will say, I do, in this day. Because one thing is very clear, At the point now, and the marriage counselors and coaches will have to tell you that issues of property are issues you have to discuss now before.
That's true.
And as you are discussing, there's that reality that you can actually separate. So to that particular extent, when you're saying till death do you part, yet in your mind you've already conceptualized that I'll be keeping receipts, then you're already negating that very
That's true.
Again, if you look at it, the point where you are going into this particular relationship, the law has even now allowed you to have even what we call prenuptials. You know, you can actually have an agreement and all that. So you still do not become one in the biblical sense of it, because already you already know
yours,
that this is yours, this is mine, and this is the already you're envisaging that. So it still brings a conundrum of things in terms of how we do our things today. And the realities of now the old or the normal way of doing things in terms of administering these marriage vows.
Okay. Grace, Sasa, what do you make of? Sasa, we stop making vows and just say, listen, see you are whole. See, I am whole. Let's come together.
I do think that at the expense of sounding like I am not very traditional, but I do think that the conversation about prenuptials needs to be had during premarital counseling, because we don't want to stay in the black and white. We are living in the gray now. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that many times we are getting into marriage, like Mr. Okach has said, we get into marriage with one thing in our head, but we actually say something. That's why he said some people become hypocrites. And you say what you are saying, but in your head you have something else. So in marital, premarital counseling, and even marital counseling, my job is to help you get in touch with your innermost thoughts, so that you can bring them out. Transparency, accountability, and these two things, transparency, openness, and accountability. Those three things are the things that bring together what we call now trust, and maintain it. As long as I have a hidden inner life about my spouse, and I tell them and I act in a certain way, one day it will come open. So the importance of marital coaching, marital counseling, marital therapy, whatever you want to call it, is for you to go through a journey of really hearing what is inside. Because if there is love, what is love? Love is kindness towards your partner. Love is empathy and consideration and respect and honor. If there is that within you, that today hata kama siku kuongelesha asubuhi, if I am called that my husband has been in an accident, I'll drop everything to go look at you and be there for you, then you love that person. And so we want to add these other things I'm talking about. But we will not have that if we are afraid of vulnerability. When the Bible talks about, as we are mentioning here, about becoming one, it's not just in property. It is also that I am before you, nothing hidden, and I'm not afraid and ashamed. But many of us today, we are so afraid. We are going into marriage very afraid of being vulnerable, and eventually that's why we are having third parties in here, and we are having all other issues that now will lead us to have to deal with what now the law has put it. But one of the things that I have to say is that let's be in reality. The reason why the court would bring this stuff into the forefront is because this is the reality we have.
Things that are happening right now. I can see our time is far much spent. Literally have like 3 more minutes to go. And Mr. Okash, of course, the question might be then, so are there, I might have evidence, right? But are there like other evidences that, you know, that might not be plausible, you know, before the court? Yes, you have all your receipts, but then the court tells you, this one is not. Because again, quoting from this case, they were saying this lady was initially married to, you know, so legally still married to this other man. I mean, he died, yes, but you were still married to that person. So even when you come to this marriage, still, you know, there's a bit of an issue over there. So are there like evidences that the courts might actually quash? Yeah,
as I answer that in under 1 minute, let me say that it is not a must that you determine matrimonial ownership at the point of separation.
Okay.
The law now allows you to even determine what is yours and what is the man's, even when the marriage is subsisting.
Okay.
So there is a notion that only when you are actually separating or there's a dissolution is when you actually determine.
Okay.
It is allowed. Two, the courts will, as long as the evidence is genuine, you know, the courts will assess the genuineness of any witness. They can interrogate the documents. Of course, it's brought in through the rules of evidence. It will assess. If it passes, the court will actually look at it, because this is a family anyway, and it is very hard to hide that particular fact. However, like in the case that you're talking about, what I told you is that you must first have capacity to marry. So if you are in another marriage, or if you're married to someone else and you've not dissolved that marriage, you do not have capacity to marry. So what happens in that, you do not determine the ownership of this property as a matrimonial property.
Okay.
It is now determined as friends. Maybe there is an issue of trust. So I actually entrusted you, and that's why the property is registered in your name. So it's actually dealt with within a different regime in terms of trusts. But in terms of matrimonial property, the first thing is to establish marriages. But at the end of the day is that, like my colleague panelist is saying, the court is dealing with the realities of the day, and we are trying to adapt. Unfortunately, there is a reality that the institution of marriage is under attack, even by this. That's the reality, because if you look at the two decisions, even that issue of you have to get married, the court is saying you can just stay together, enjoy everything, you know, which the Bible has said you shouldn't, and you are not married. You know, that's not what and I expected, I said it in another show, pastors, priests, and the church to actually take this matter seriously. It is an affront to the family unit as we know, and biblical aspect.
And of course, that was about to be my question in terms of then what is the future? What does the future of marriage look like? I mean, Grace, can you answer that in like under a minute?
Yes, I will say this. It's very simple. The marriage is both legal and emotional, cultural and social. Let's do the legal part, which is very simple, and we would know. That's why when we are doing premarital, that's why you need to get a marriage coach, so that you can be able to understand the reason why you need to have that recognition with the government. But also there is something that happens psychologically when there is that written communication. There is something that shifts psychologically, and we go into our settlement, because it's also a show of commitment. And real marital love has three components. There is commitment, there is friendship, and there is companionship. So if you have those, we call that consummate marriage, where we are attracted to each other, we are committed to each other, and we are walking with each other. And no matter what we go through, we are able to manage it. Hakuna mtu mwingine huko nje atakuwa better than this one.
That's true. The two of you. I mean, clearly.
Human beings are the same.
Are the same. That's true.
The skills is what makes the difference.
What we need. Absolutely. Okay. Clearly, 1 hour is not enough for us to just cover, you know, because there's a lot that we need to go through. But again, maybe we'll have, you know, this type of conversation again, so that, again, we really get to understand. So now that we know what the issue is, there's a bit of a threat, you know, like Mr. Okach said. So then what do we do, you know, to sort of like bring ourselves back to order, right? But clearly we have to end the conversation right now, but let me just go through very quickly, you know, your feedback as far as the question that we're asking you today, and that is, should couples split 50-50 of their wealth? So Dominic says, if they have children, then they should split 50-50, but if not children, let them share according to their contribution, all right? And then someone else says, very quickly, Kageni Mutegi says, nope, it is not a guarantee that they both put equal effort to acquire that wealth. I see you, all right. And then someone else says, leave it top. Gaddafi says, should be at the ratio of investment. Anything remains history. And of course, there's so much, you know, feedback. But again, just keep the conversation going on our socials at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter. But for now, and on YouTube as well, you know, let's continue with this conversation just to get to see how well we really understand, you know, that pronouncement. But for now, Grace Kariuki, marriage and family therapist, as well as Duncan Okach, an advocate. Thank you Such an insightful conversation. We sure will continue with the same, some other time, but for now, asanteni sana. And of course, thank you so much for staying with us as well until the end of the conversation. We've learned a lot. I know you've learned a lot. But again, let's keep informing ourselves and get the correct information, all right, as far as these things are concerned. So stay safe. My name is Winnie Lubembe. I will see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on your world. But until then, again, goodbye and stay safe. See you soon.